a big welcome to the valley of the shadows of management science, specifically in the area of decision analysis. Everybody decides, should I marry him or I shouldn't marry him? People decide all the time, okay? And we need information before we can make a decision. Many people analyze information. Sometimes they look for alternatives. Should I do the MBA or I should rather take that money and do a business? Which one should you do? Subjectivity, intrinsicity, all of this come into the decision making. But the most powerful way of making a decision is called systematic way. It has to be well systematically decided. So here's the thing. The essence of deciding is to develop ways to help you make the decision super. But it does not replace the one making the decision. But the one making the decision uses the approach to decide. That is why I love something in CIMA. You know, those of you who do accounting, the last thing they do is called top CIMA. Because the top CIMA, that one the computer cannot replicate. Because most of the things that accountants do, computers are doing them. But the computers cannot make accounting policies. That the decision maker should be the one to do. So decision making is very, very important. What is it? What is decision analysis? It is a way of identifying, modeling, assessing, determining an appropriate course of action, given the problem at hand. For example, you have $70,000 right now. What should you do with that $70,000? Where should you put it? Before you can decide where to put it, you got to analyze the cost of what you're about to do and the benefit of that same thing you're about to do for each decision you take. And this whole approach is known as decision analysis. Sometimes when you're making a decision, you are setting. And that's what we've been doing all this while. For example, you are certain of the inputs and outputs. In linear programming, you are clear about the number of gallons available. You are clear about the number of hours available. But in decision making under uncertainty, you are not aware. You are unaware of what is available. And so you got to use probabilistic techniques. You know, probably, likely, you know, this will happen. So let's look at the elements of decision making. The first element of a decision-making process is known as the decision maker. I don't normally buy much into that. In fact, it's not really the first element. Okay? But keep that in mind. The decision maker is well known in the decision. But the first thing in decision making is known as the decision alternative. D1 for the first decision. Decision alternative. D2 for the second decision. Decision alternative. D3 for the third decision. Decision alternative. D4. And then on and on and on. So the decision alternative is the item you got to decide on. Is a thing you got to make a decision about. But each decision alternative happens under a state of nature. The state of nature can be S1, which is state of nature 1, S2, state of nature 2, S3, state of nature 3, S4, state of nature 4. What is that state of nature? Well, you see, the decision alternative, you control them. You have control over them. Okay? Because you got to make a decision. It comes from you. You control that. But the state of nature are factors you don't control. They are not under your control. And they are kind of preventing you or allowing you to make the decision. It could be the macroeconomic environment. Whether GDP is high, is medium, or is low. Whether interest rates are incredibly high, considerably high. They are low, they are very low. These are factors outside your control, and they are known as the state of nature. The final thing is known as the payoff. The payoff. The payoffs are your outcomes. It can be positive outcome or negative outcome based on each decision you took. So you can have payoff 1, payoff 2, payoff 3, and then on and on. These are the returns you get under each state of nature. So under a particular state of nature, the payoff can be 2 options. So the decision alternatives are usually written as that, D1, D2, D3, D4. And then the state of nature are given as S1, going to the right, S2, S3, S4, S5. Remember, the state of nature must not necessarily be the same number as the decision alternative. So you can have decision alternatives that are just 4. And then the state of nature are 6, 5, 10, or 2. Doesn't matter. So the payoff will be what you gain depending on the state of nature and the decision. So if you look at decision alternative, so it can be that the decision alternative 1, the payoff is 2. Given the state of nature is 1, but the payoff is 4. Given the state of nature is 2, and the payoff is 0. Given the state of nature is 3. All for decision alternative 1. It can even be that the state of nature will be 6 or 1, depending on the state of nature under consideration. And decision alternative 2 can also have different payoffs under different state of nature. The question now becomes, what decision are you going to select? That's the most important. Which one are you going to select, given the state of nature and the payoff? What decision are you going to have, given the state of nature as well as the payoffs? Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is the essence of our presence today. So, final question. So let's begin. Okay, I'm going to give you a typical example. Now, there's several ways of making the decisions as follows. We have criteria, procedure, algorithms that can be used to be able to arrive at a decision. Maximax is the first one. Maximin. Minimax regret. How is equal likelihood, and there are several more, okay, that you can use to decide. Let's take a story, a practical life situation where someone is going to make a decision. And then let's decide based on these or some of these approaches. Kofi Wayo, he wants to invest among apartment building. So it's one of the things that Kofi Wayo has to make a decision on. Apartment building, office building, or warehouse. So how many decision alternatives are here? How many D's are here? Type it out for me. How many decision alternatives are we looking at in this context? Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 5? How many are the decision alternatives? Good. We are all correct. 3. Now, how many are the state of nature? Looking at the story. The rest of the story will give you a clue. How many are the state of nature? How many are the S's? Is it S1? Or there are 3 S's? Or there are 9 S's? Excellent. There are 2. Okay. So now we know. So even before you start, what we now need to know is just the payoff. Let's continue the reading and see whether we'll be given the payoff. So Kovoema employs, someone to actually decide whether we go for building, office building, or warehouse. The state of nature is when there's a bad economic condition, that's why the arrow is going down here, or a good economic condition, that's why the arrow is going up. The state of nature are as follows. But I'm going to rewrite this state of nature and remove the thousands so that it becomes clearer. So watch something. In here, I'm going to write that the decision alternative, D, and then the state of nature is S. In fact, let me use a blackboard for this purpose. So let me just quickly go to a blackboard because we will be using that blackboard later on. So we have the decision alternative D. Okay. D, and then the state of nature S. The decision alternatives are D1, remember the name, it's apartment building. D2, remember the name, is office building. And D3, remember the name, it is warehouse. The state of nature are S1, which is good report. And then S2, which is bad economic report. So we have the good economic condition and then bad economic condition. Remember, there could have been more. According to the story, now let's go back to the story. The story says that the economic conditions, if the economic condition is good, apartment will yield a positive $50,000. Office building will yield $100,000. Warehouse will yield $30,000. But if the economic condition is bad, apartment gives you only $30,000, negative $40,000 for office building, and $10,000 for warehouse. We want to write that. Let's document that. And like I said, we are just going to remove those thousands. So the office building, the apartment building is what? 50,000. Office is 100. And then the warehouse is what? I want to be sure that some of you are following. What is a warehouse? 30,000. Good. Now, if the economic condition is bad, the office building gives you what? 30,000. Sorry, the apartment gives you 30,000. The office gives you negative 40,000. And then the warehouse gives you what? Type the warehouse and let me see. It's 10. Very good. Now, we are going to use 5 approaches to make a decision. Which one should we go for? When I say which one should we go for, what I mean is that should we take the apartment building, or we should rather take the office building, or we should rather take the warehouse? That is a problem for the decision maker to make. Now, the first approach we are going to use to make this decision is known as the maximax approach. The maximax approach is also called the optimistic criterion. You see, a person who has the maximax approach, and by the way, always look at the max first, not the maxi first. The max first before you come to the maxi. So it's actually supposed to be maxi, but we pronounce it maximax. Who is an optimistic person? A person who is optimistic is someone who believes that everything is going to work out for good, innit? Everything will work out for the best. It doesn't matter. So when they are going to make a decision, to them, the economic condition, is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? What do you think? Using the maximax, is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? It's going to be good, exactly. And so when we go back to the decision alternative, what would they do? First, these guys will select the economic condition that is good. So they would go to D1, and then between good and bad economic condition, they will choose good. So D1, for them, this is how it's going to be. D1 is going to be 50. They will choose that one. What about D2? D2, they will choose which one? 100, because 100 is better than 40. What about D3? When they go to D3, they will choose the good economic condition, which is the 30 instead of the 10. Now they have made the decision based on the state of nature. Now, which one would they go for? Remember, it's maximax. In other words, they would take the best of these best. Write it down. The optimistic person selects the best of the best. And so who can tell me the best of the best? So among the apartment, office building, and warehouse, which one would they go for? They'll go for office, exactly. So you choose D2, which gives you a $100,000, and therefore you'll go for the office building. So the best alternative decision is to take the office building under the optimistic approach. That's the first approach. The second approach of making a decision is not an optimistic, as you can probably guess. Okay. And of course, remember that in this case, the decision that was taken was office building because every payoff is considered as a profit, as a gain. But of course, if all the payoffs were considered as a loss, okay, if there are losses like cost, suppose we have costs like 20, 24, and then 80. And these were the best among the alternatives, the two alternatives. And this is at the cost. So in this case, which one would be the best alternative under the optimistic approach? Is it D1, decision 2, or decision alternative 3? Under the cost, where the goal will be to minimize. It will be D1, exactly. Because among all of them, the D1 is the smallest. So it depends on whether you are dealing with a gain or a loss. Now, let's go to the next one, as I said. The next criterion, aside optimistic or the maximus, is known as the maximin. Maximin. Now, let me just go back to the table again. And I want you to understand, because understanding is key. You see, under the maximin approach, instead of the maximax, again, the main here is a focus. This is someone who is conservative, pessimistic. Today, we can't tell everything is going to be bad. There are some people like that. Everything is going to be bad. To them, I don't know. It's not going to work. It's like that guy who stood in front of me and told me that because his families are not good in maths, he knows he's not good. So such a person does not go for the best of the best, but they go for what? Who can guess? They don't go for the best of the best, but they go for what? If you can write it there, I'll know that you are. They go for the best of the West. Exactly. Best of the least. I love that. Exactly. So they go for the best of the West. Okay. The best of the West. So such a person, they will not be, first of all, under the state of nature. Remember, one of the state of nature is good, another is bad. So they will not think that the state of nature is going to be good. To them, they have to expect the West first. But once they have selected the West, then among the West, they will take the best because after all, they are looking for the best out of the West situation. Do you get it? So when we go back here, okay, to them, okay, so let's say that the maximax people, they chose the 50, 100, and then 30. Okay, so that's the maximax people. Okay. Now the minimax people, what would they choose? They would choose the bad economic condition. And the first one is what? 30, negative 40, and then 10. Why? Because between 50 and 30, 30 is the worst. Between 100 and negative 4 is the worst. Between 30 and 10, 10 is the worst. And therefore, based on this, which one would they go for? Which decision alternative? Remember, the first decision alternative was office. This one, which one would they go for? Say some more. Say some. He who speaks delivers himself from the abyss. Okay. So the best decision, you see, people are writing wrong answers as well. Some are writing wrong answers. Some say it's negative 40. Wow. A lot say it's negative 40. Some are also saying that it's 30. Wow. So the best of the West here, these are the West. The best of the West is 30. Okay. So such a person will go for the 30, which is warehouse. And so they'll go for D1, which is 30, which is the apartment, not a warehouse. That is what is known as the pessimistic criteria. Let's go to the third one. The third approach is what is known as the minimax regret approach. Take note. It's a little bit complex. The minimax regret approach. Now, before I tell you about this, let me give you a story. The minimax regret approach. We call them the opportunistic criterion. So we have the pessimistic. Don't forget. First, we had the optimistic. And then we got to the pessimistic. And then we now have the opportunistic, which is the minimax regret approach. What is that? Well, we've heard of the word opportunist. Opportunist. Who is an opportunist? An opportunist. Oh. Now, the opportunistic person is someone who wants to analyze the situation, act as though if he had acted negatively, this is what would have happened. And if he had acted positively, this is what would have happened. An opportunist. So when the opportunist is aware that the thing is going bad, he doesn't go there. So what opportunist does is that he tries to find his regrets. And once he finds his regrets, he minimizes the regret as much as possible. And then go for the lowest of the regret. If I marry this guy, what would be the regret? I'll regret 10%. Okay. If I married this other guy, what would be the regret? 20%. Okay. So the first one was 10%. The second one is 20%. Okay. If I marry the third guy, what would be the regret? 7%. Okay. So this guy will marry which one? First guy, second guy, or third guy? Which one is he going to marry? Having calculated the regret, he's surely going to marry the third guy. Exactly. So let me ask you, if Kofi Wayo had actually, you remember that when we did the first one, he chose the office building because it was going to give him $100,000 or so. Remember? Okay, let me just go back for you to see. He chose this office building the first time. Now and this is under the condition that he believed that the state of nature was going to be good. That is why he chose 100. What if the state of nature had not been good? After he has chosen 100, the state of nature had not been good, but rather had been bad. which means that it would have been better he has chosen what? 30,000. But now that the state of nature had been bad, but he had already chosen office building, now he will rather get negative 40. So he would regret. He would regret not having selected what? Not having selected the apartment, which would have rather given him 30. So what this person does is that he calculates his regret. How much regret would he have? Well, I can tell you, and again, if you can guess well, you will know that the regret will be what the situation is now, which is 100, that he selected, and what he has no choice, but it is now. So now, under the condition of the regret, if he had gone for the office, but the state of nature had been bad, okay, and he would have now switched to go for what? To go for a warehouse, the apartment, he will regret, and the regret will be the difference between the two possibilities that he would have chosen, the gap between the two. So the regret will be the 100 minus the 30. So the level of regret will be 70. Now you got to think through this because that's the degree of the regret the person is doing. But of course, how do we calculate this regret in this whole scenario? Because remember, we didn't say that this guy chose this one and then it turned out to be that. How do we go about it? This is how we deal with the regret. First of all, we represent the regret with a beautiful formula. Here's the formula. The formula is given by, it's a very simple formula, don't worry. It's given by Rij, write it down, Rij, which is equal to the absolute value of Vj star minus Vij, the absolute value of that. And of course, you want to know what a Vj star is. Vj star is simply the highest value in the column. Remember, J always means column. Okay. J is column. I is row. So if you look at the column, and by the way, the columns are the state of nature. So if you come to this very example that we have here, this is the value. That's why it's V. The values, you have two columns. The columns are 6. You have to deal with them. So we have VJ1 and then VJ2 because there are two columns. The state of nature are the VJs. The VJ stands for, the star stands for the highest value of the values, of the column value. Now, I say highest value because if it is cost, it will be the lowest value of the values. But because it's this, maximization, it becomes the highest value of the values. So who can tell me the VJ1? Who can tell me the VJ1 here? If we have to find V1, not VJ1, V1 star. So the J is the first column. Which one? What will be the value of the V1 star? Okay. And what will be the value of the V2 star? So first column, what will be the value? Type it out for me. Type it out. What will be the highest value of that column? I'm getting some lovely answers. You see, those who are not typing, the other ones, not. So V1 star is 100. There's no question about that. You have to write it there. What about V2 star? What is V2 star? Exactly, that is 30. So now that we have the V1 star and the V2 star, we are now ready. And this is what is known as the highest value. Let me go back and show you the formula for the regret. You're going to calculate the regret for each cell. The regret is take the highest value minus each value. Okay. What do I mean? What I mean is that take the highest value, which is this 100, minus the value here. And that will be the regret here. So in principle, what we are doing is that we are creating this table. Let me see if I can get a very nice shape of the table here. Okay. So let's say that we have this table, this beautiful table. Okay. And then this table that we have, we are going to find that, and then that, and then that. And for this one, too, we are going to find that, and then that, and then, let me move this one here a bit. And then finally that. So basically, this is what we are finding. So we have the D1, we have the D2. You should do the same thing. We are creating something we call regret table, D3. Oh, and then we have the S1, and then S2. So let's forget about the last column. Now, how do you find the regret for this space, the D1, S1 space? Remember, that will be obtained by the highest value here minus the actual value here. That is why we say that it is the VJ star, which is the highest value, minus the actual value in that column. So what would be the answer for this one here? It will be 100 minus what? Minus 50. 100 minus 50. That will give you what? 50. 100 minus 100. That will give you what? 0. 100 minus 10. That will give you what? 70. So that helps us to fill in the first column. So let me go back here. 100 minus 50. That will give you 50. 100 minus 100. That will give you 0. 100 minus 30. That will give you 70. Remember, in every column, there must be at least 1 0 because the highest value will always be subtracting itself from itself. Okay. And whenever you have a mind, remember we are dealing with absolute value. Let's go to the second column. Let me go back here. The second column, the highest value is what? 30. So you're going to take the highest value minus each cell in that column. So the first one will be what value? Type it there. Excellent, 0. The second one will be what value? Be careful there. Be careful with the second one because that's the tricky. Yes. The second one will be what value? I got somebody who got lost. Eden, he got lost. He said negative 10. It cannot be negative 10. Okay, the rest of you, majority of you are getting it correct. It is 30 minus 40. And 30 minus 40 is 30 plus 40. And so the value for that second cell will be 70. So the first one, you're going to have 30. The first one, you're going to have 0. And the second one, you're going to have 70. And then what about the last one? The last one will be 30 minus 10. That will give you 20. And so the last one will be 20. Fantastic. So now what have we calculated? What you have calculated is that you have calculated regret for each table. In fact, if you have to look at it, the first one will be regret, will be 1, 1. Okay, the 50. Okay, the next one will be going to the right, it will be R1, 2. Okay, then the next row will be R2, 1, then R2, 2. Okay. Then the next one will be R31, R32. So that's what we just done. We calculated the regret for each. Now that you have the regret, the minimax regret, what's the word? The minimax regret says that you should first of all select the biggest of the regrets in each decision. So the maximum regret must be selected. That's what it's trying to say. Maximum of the regrets. So if you look at decision alternative 1, which regret was the maximum there? It was 50. So you write 50. Well, let me use a different color to just distinguish. Okay. So you write 50. The second one, what is the maximum of the regret? It is also 70. The third one, what is the maximum of the regret? It is also 70. Now we have the maximum of the regret. Then the thing says, find the minimum of that maximum regret. That's why it's called minimax. Find the minimum of the maximum regret. So finally, the minimax regret, okay, the minimax regret would be what? Who can type the answer? This one, you need to be sure that you are aware of what you're saying. What would be the minimax regret? So which alternative decision should we go for? D what is going to be the winner? The minimax regret is 50, and therefore the decision alternative is warehouse. Sorry, the decision alternative is apartment building. That's number 1, apartment building. So using the minimax regret approach, apartment building has been selected. But don't forget, using the maximax, office building was shown. Using the maximin, apartment building was selected. And using the minimax regret, apartment building has also been selected. So you can see the apartment building has been selected twice. Office building has been selected once. So far, these are the 2 approach, or the 3 approach. Okay, but then there are a couple more. The next approach, unless you have a question. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and then you can ask your question. Okay. Now, the next thing that you want to notice that everything, yes, Eric, you got a question? Eric, go ahead. Go ahead, Eric. You can talk because I've allowed you to talk. I've unmuted it. Okay. It looks like, is it me who cannot hear him, or the rest of you cannot? Okay. Oops. All right. So I just want to believe that you can type your question in the chat today, and I'll come in this. Okay. So here's the thing. Yeah, his network is not okay. All right, no problem. So the minimax regret approach, remember, is using regret to calculate the decision. And remember, in each one of these, you are deciding. When I say you are deciding, what I mean is that you are making a decision as to which alternative to go for. Now, in all of this, we have not considered probabilities. You see, no probabilities of occurrence were assigned to the state of nature. Remember, I told you that the state of nature, the decision maker has no control. So for you to actually tell me that the state of nature is going to be good, is going to be bad, what is the probability that it's going to be good? What is the probability that it's going to be bad? Before you can conclude that it's going to be good or it's going to be bad, you need to ask some economic forecaster or forecaster analytics, someone who is very good at predictive analytics, to be able to foretell the future that economic, and then believe me, there are people like that. There are people who are good. They can use predictive models to predict how GDP is going to be, how the interest rate is going to be, how this is going to be, the housing price is going to be, how that is going to be, how that is going to be. Let us assume for once that we have someone who is an economic forecaster, and then the person will be able to now assign probabilities. You are assigning probabilities to the state of nature. Okay, that's what we are doing. You are assigning probabilities to the state of nature. So that's the word I want you to write down. Assign, let me write that down. Assign probabilities to the state of nature. Okay. You're assigning probabilities to the state of nature. Now, remember that probability, as we know, is between 0 and 1. So the probability of state of nature J is actually between 0 and 1. So everything must be between 0 and 1. That means that the sum of the probabilities is what? The sum of the probability of the state of nature will be equal to what? You can type it. You can type that. The sum of the probabilities will be what? It will be 1. All right. So Eric's question was, let me see. It says that, is it always the case that the maximin and the minimax will give the same results? No, not necessarily. It's just coincidental that this happened. All right. Now, let's assume that Kofi had a forecaster, an economic forecaster, who has assigned probabilities to the state of nature. Then we can calculate under maximization or under minimization. We can calculate the expected value, or what is known as the expected value, without perfect information. So watch that. If probabilities have been assigned, if probability of the state of nature is known, okay, then we can compute expected value without perfect information. Now, the word expected value without perfect information is also the same as expected value. Now, watch it. Anytime we mention the word expected value, watch the word expected value. They're talking about mean. I wanted to ask you, but I don't want us to go up and down. Okay, we are talking about the mean. So the expected is something you don't know now. And the possibility of getting it is by virtue of multiple things that you do. So you're able to know the expected based on historical data. So the expected value can be computed. Why can we compute it? We can compute the expected value because we are aware of the probability of the state of nature occurring. And so once we are aware of the probability of the state of nature occurring, you can always calculate the expected value. Why did I call it without perfect information? I called it expected value without perfect information because the information that we have might not be the perfect information. Unless there is a reason to believe that it's a perfect information. And I'll show you when there is that belief. You see, so many people go and stake their things in the stock market and they don't win. Meanwhile, they claim that they had perfect information. But that was not perfect information. The expectation of their value was without perfect information. Well, they never believed that it was without perfect information until they've lost. Investing in the stock market, investing in the currencies across the world, cryptos, all of these, you need perfect information. But what we have now is without perfect information. But even though it's without perfect information, because we have the probability of the state of nature, and then we can assign the probabilities. And based on that, for each decision alternative, we can calculate the expected value. So how do we calculate the expected value? We can calculate the expected value for each decision like this. The expected value for a particular decision alternative, DI, is given by, please note the formula, is given by the sum of the value. Remember, it's value, so we are talking about value. The sum of the value, each payoff, multiplied by the probability of the state of nature. Write it down. Okay. So if you take each value, and of course, this, if the state of nature are 1 to 10, then for each payoff, you're going to calculate for that decision alternative. Remember, that is for the decision alternative, which starts from J1 all the way to the sample of D1, which is N. So what is D? D is a decision alternative. So that means that we need to find the expected value for D1. Then we need to find the expected value for D2. Then we need to find the expected value for D3. But how do you find the expected value for D1? Watch it. We are not using the regret table, remember. This is vain, so it is a value, the value table, the original one. And you multiply each of the payoff by the probability of the state of nature. And then you sum them, and that will give you the expected value for apartments. Let's go back to the data and see. So this is the value. Apartment has a value which is 50 and another value which is 30. That is apartment. How do we calculate the expected value for apartment? I'm going to let you calculate the rest, and I'm calculating the first one. Well, to get the expected value for apartment, which is D1, it is going to be equal to the value V multiplied by the state of nature for that column. What was the state of nature for this column? Well, watch it carefully. We were told something, and again, I want to just show you a statement which sometimes you will always get. Okay. Let me just show you here. It says that using the real estate investment example, assume that based on several economic forecasts, Kofi Wayo is able to estimate that 60%, able to estimate a 60% probability that economic condition is going to be good. What is the recommended best decision using the expected value approach? Now, you see, for him to say that 60% probability that economic condition is going to be good, he doesn't have to tell you how many percent that economic condition is going to be bad, because it is how many percent. Who can type it out? You know, if it tells you that 60% of the time economic condition is going to be good, okay, it means that how many percent of the time is economic condition going to be bad? Yep, correct. Okay, that is going to be 40%. 40%. So this is how you always, and then you are expected to calculate that. So we know that the probability of the state of nature 1 was given as 0.6, 60%. So the probability of state of nature 2 would be 1 minus the probability of state of nature 1. This is what you got to work, which is 40%. So now we know the state of nature for each column. So let's go back to the table. Okay. This is a table. So we can put the state of nature there for each one of them. What's the first one? Well, it's right here. The first one is the state of nature is 0.6, so you write 0.6 here. And the second one, the state of nature is 0.4, so you write 0.4. Now you know the state of nature for each one. Question now becomes, how do you calculate the expected value for D1? It's very simple. Very simple. Well, according to the formula that we had, and again, let me take you back to the formula so that you know. The formula says that take the value, multiply by the state of nature, then take the next value, multiply by the state of nature, then take the next value, multiply by the state of nature, then take the next value, and then when you finish, you sum them all. You're done. You got expected value for D1. So let's look at it. It means that we take the first value, which is 50, we multiply that 50 by the state of nature, which is 0.6, plus, that's the sum. We take the next value, which is what, 30. Okay, the 30 is here. And then we multiply the 30 also by the state of nature, which is 0.4. You're done. In this case, it's just two of them. What's the answer? What is the expected value that you can get if you were to select decision alternative 1? What would be the value? Now, you will get a value of 42. Excellent. Okay. So remember, if the economic condition was good, it was 50. If the economic condition was bad, it was 30. But expectation, given the probability that we have now, is 42. Put that down. Hold it. We'll come back and check with the others. I want you now to calculate the expected value for decision alternative 2. So calculate for EV2. And when you are done, send me your answer privately. I don't want it publicly. Privately send me your answer, because I need to reward some people. When you're done, you privately send me your answer. Privately send me your answer. Okay, I'm getting some. Only 3 people have sent me answers. Okay, Anthony, Samuel, Erica, Mose, Eric, Yvonne. The answer is wrong. Double check it. Teresa, the answer is wrong. Double check it. Samuel, Ewa, Enyanam, Akrofi, all of you are correct. Very good. Francisca, correct. Teresa, I need one answer. I don't need 2 answers. Hubert, Joseph, Ato, all correct. Elvis, Gifty, all correct. Caleb, I need 1 answer. We are calculating decision alternative 2. When you are giving me 2 answers, I am not interested. Caleb, Teresa, Felicity, Sarah, all correct. Yasin, Ebenezer, all correct. Emmanuel, that's wrong. Double check your answer. Ethel, Ophelia, Deborah, all correct. Okay, I'm done. Don't wait for everybody. So we were able to confirm that the next answer, okay, for D2 is 44. D1 was 42, D2 is 44. What about expected value for D3? But that is the answer some of you were giving me, even though you're not ready. Of course, you see, If you are great and you are great, you would have known that I would have asked you for the third one by now. So you should have been calculating that. Okay. Ato, Yasmin, Erica, Teresa, all of you are correct. You know, and that's wrong. Francisca, Samuel, and Kukua, all of them are correct. So when you check the third one, you'll see that that one is 22. So EV decision alternative 3 is 22. So based on the expected value approach, which decision alternative are you going to select? You're going to select the office building because it gives you a higher expected value of 44. Okay, so the office building is the one to go. Office building, which is D1, give you an expected value. Apartment, which is D1, give you an expected value of 42. Office building, which is D2, give you expected value of 44. And warehouse, which is D3, give you an expected value of 22. The best decision is the one with the highest expected value. Office building. So office building now has been selected twice. And the apartment building has also been selected twice. So nobody has selected, no approach has selected warehouse. And we keep going. We are left with the last two, and then we bring some connections here. You see, what we've just done is that we have calculated expected value, but we have also told you that the expected value is also called expected value without perfect information. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. The next approach we are going to calculate, and please keep the expected value without perfect information we just did. Keep it in mind, because at this stage, when we are getting to, it could be tricky. Okay. The expected value without perfect information, that is what we just did. So because we have selected, let me just go back slightly. Because we have selected the expected value of D2, which is 42, to be the one to go, it becomes expected value without perfect information. I've explained expected value without perfect information, which means that we must have expected value with perfect information. Expected value with perfect information is different from expected value without perfect information. Please pay attention here. The reason why I said it's different is because the expected value with perfect information, that one has perfect information or giving perfect information. And that one is never used to decide. Keep note. We use the expected value without perfect information, we use it to decide. When I say to decide, I mean to select which decision alternative to go for. But expected value without perfect information, with perfect information, we don't use it to decide. We don't decide with it. So what is it for? Well, the expected value with perfect information or expected value given perfect information is based on the probability of the state of nature when it is known. And it is needed to help you to find something, and that something is the most important thing. These two are needed to help you find the expected value of perfect information. Yeah, Gifty. Yeah, Gifty. Gifty, go ahead.
Hello, Doc. Please, are we using D1 or D2? Because the value for D2 we got is 44, not
Oh,
42.
yeah, thank you for that.
Uh,
Yes, it's D2, which is 44. It's not 41. Actually, I was checking whether you can spot that. I was checking, I was checking whether you are following me. So I deliberately changed it to 40 to see whether you are really following me. And indeed, it has worked. You were following me. Oh dear. Okay. So it means that you guys are following. It means I have to be careful tricking you next time. Okay. So we have the expected value of perfect information. What is that? What is that? Expected value of perfect information is given by something. It's not something that on its own is just there. No. The expected value of perfect information is the expected value without perfect information. Sorry, expected value with perfect information minus the expected value without perfect information. The absolute value of that answer. You write it down. Write it down. It is expected value with perfect information minus the without perfect information. What is that? What is that? What is expected value? See, and again, these terminologies are quite tricky. What is the expected value with perfect information? Expected value of perfect information is the first one. What is the of perfect information? The perfect information, the of perfect information is not obtained unless you have subtracted the one without perfect information from the one with perfect information. You see, when information is perfect, what it means is that it's accurate, devoid of any biases, is a true information. But when information is not perfect, it means that it can lead to the murder of someone because it wasn't perfect information. Now, when you are able, and you can have these two information in a law court, in the Secret Service, in the CIA, in the top, top secret agencies. And so we need to detach the one without perfect information from the one with perfect information. And how do we do that deduction? The deduction is when you juxtapose each one of them to questioning. So sometimes the director of the information services will query the two, and then we'll arrive at a conclusion. When you have done that, then you have the expected value of perfect information. And I know sometimes the thing might be on your mind and say, how can we have the one that is with perfect information? And then we still want to say we want to remove the one without, because until you get information with perfection, you would have detached certain things from something before you get to know that now we have perfect information. That's what I'm saying. Certain things have to be, removed from it. And when you get it, it is now of perfect information, not just with perfect information. Okay, now let's go back. We know the expected value without perfect information. We've calculated it. That's the one we also call the expected value approach. And remember, we were using it to make a decision. When I say to make a decision, we were using this to help us to decide whether we are dealing with D1, D2, and D3. But I also told you that this second one, this very one, we don't use it to decide. Expected value with perfect information, we do not use it to decide. What is that? We use it to only help us to get expected value of perfect information. So what is the expected value of perfect information? Well, let's go back. We found office building to be the best decision based on the expected value approach. It gave us $44,000. This was defined as expected value without perfect information. Don't forget. Now, when we say without perfect information, it doesn't mean that the 44 will always lead to buying the office. Remember, it is average, it's expected. So it doesn't mean that anytime she buys the office building, the expected value is always going to be 44. No. But a large number of the times, an average payoff of 44 is going to result. That's what it means. And I've already said that if the payoffs has been cost, it means that the best decision would have been the one with the lowest expected value. Okay. Now, let's go back to the perfect information. You can buy information. Those of you who are very familiar with the movie known as 24, an American series where Jack Bauer will intervene and sometimes use his own discretion to be able to arrive at collecting information and eventually, giving us, yes, 24 hours. You remember that movie? Now, there were so many secrecies within the world that this guy had to battle with. Information was a serious thing. In that movie, there was a mentioning of, wet list, which was, in the hands of a certain Russian guy, and a German guy needed it. But the Americans also needed it. And the German intelligence also needed it. Intelligence was at the peak of this movie. Information is asset. Today, information is gold. Information is oil. And that is why data and data analytics and artificial intelligence is growing at a phenomenal rate. And so because of that, sometimes people will pay everything to get information. For example, if you have information about a president, not just the president, but the presidency, you're not only destroying the president, you are destroying the presidency. This happened in season 5 of that movie, where President Charles Logan was doing certain things that were not right, but in an attempt to bringing him to justice, the Secretary of Defense, Heller, indicated that would destroy the presidency and not just the president. The point is this. You can buy more information. You can buy more information, and the cost of the information that you will pay, you will not pay more than the value you will get from the information. So if the information has some maximum value, that is the value you will be willing to pay for that information. I don't know, guys, if you get me. If somebody kidnaps your child, the reason why they might not even go and kidnap some of you, your child, is because they know that you don't have that amount of valuable money to give them. Do you think that somebody will go and capture your child, or the person will want to capture the president's child? Which of them? You, your child, your child. I mean, what is that person looking for? Actually, the person will wait. It's called ransom. The person will have to calculate what is going to be. There are some of you, when even somebody arrests you, okay, nobody will even pay it. Nobody will pay something, because the thing is that, in fact, it reminds me of some Nigerian movie where the man, Mr. Ibu and son, somebody came for the child. And then he told the man to take his child away. He doesn't even want to. He says he doesn't need any money. You should just take the child away. He's tired. He's tired of the child. So imagine this child has been kidnapped. You can see that the parents will not even bother themselves, because the thing is that there is no value for information is very important. So there are some things in life that shows that you will pay something that commensurate with your loss. And the value of the information can be calculated as an expected value. That's the point we're saying. The value of the information is what is calculated as an expected value. So you can have something that is of value, but I will give you money. The money I'm giving you is a value, and that money is what is known as the expected value of perfect information. That is what is known as the EVPI. EVPI, expected value of perfect information. Okay, and I'm going to show you some beautiful link between this expected value of perfect information. Good. So what we are going to do is we're going to calculate the expected value of perfect information. And the way you calculate it, remember I told you that you don't need to use it to decide. How do you calculate the expected value with perfect information? Before you can get the expected value of, you need to calculate the weight. And the weight, we don't use it for decision. The expected value with perfect information is given by the sum of the probability of state of nature J. So you look for the probability of the state of nature J, but this time it is multiplied by the maximum value in the data set. So maximum Vj, okay, the maximum Vj star. Now, this is under the assumption that we are dealing with value. So what do we mean by maximum Vj star? Okay, so you remember I told you that each column is a Vj. Okay, let's go here. Each column is a Vj. And then we calculate Vj star or V1 star. That is the maximum value in that column. And then V2 star, that is the maximum value in that column. The V1 star was 100, the V2 star was 30. That's it. If you are dealing with the expected value with perfect information, you just take the higher of the two. Sorry, you take both of them, and then you multiply each one of them by their respective probabilities. So you take this probability, which is 6.6, and multiply it by the 100, and you take this probability, which is 4, and you multiply it by the 30, and then you sum them, and that's it. Remember, you're not using it to decide, so it gives you one single answer. So 0.6 times 100 plus 0.4 times 30. That is what is going to give you. And that is the formula here. Okay. So the probability of the state of nature multiplied by the maximum value. Then the next one multiplied by its maximum value in that column. And that will give you that. So the first one is going to be 0.6 times 100 plus 0.4 times 30. What do you get? 0.6 times 100 plus 0.4 times 30. 72. Excellent. Teresa, you are with me. So you get 72. Teresa, I hope you're not copying answers from anywhere, because sometimes your answers come early. And I think this answer has been given to me by you or someone before. Okay. So 72. What is this 72? This 72 is expected value with perfect information. Okay. But that with perfect information is infected without perfect information. So you need to remove the without perfect information from it to get the expected value of perfect information. So you go to the latter part, the expected value of perfect info is the one with perfect information, which is this 72, minus the one without the perfect information, which was 44. Okay. And then you will get your final answer to that effect. What is going to be that your final answer? 28, isn't it? I know some of you have already written the answers and all of that. That gives you 28. I'm going to interpret this 28 for you. That's the most important thing. What is this 28? 28 here is a very powerful thing. It is a price you are willing to pay to get perfect information. It is a value. That's why it's called expected value. It is a price you are willing, the maximum amount you are willing to pay to buy perfect information. So sometimes there are some things that we call consultancy. And sometimes we say consultants are very, very rich, and partly because you pay them something. Sometimes they don't even do the real work, but you pay them something because they are able to use your mind to collate and sublet and outsource, and then will come out with what you really want. The same thing when it comes to the secrecies in government. Okay, the price probably the president is willing to pay so that the information that his people murdered someone will not come out. But imagine that this murder of someone was actually done not by the president, but it was done by one of the secret service agents of the president. Then the president will not pay that amount of money that you are asking him to pay because it might not, it's not something that concerns him. The person has to go to court. So the value of the information will warrant the price that got to be paid for the person. You see, that's why I always say that if your price is valuable, people will pay you an amount of money that you deserve. That's why some people have bargaining power than others because they know their value. I know my worth. And because I know my worth, I will not let you pay me the price you want to pay me. But when you don't know your worth, when you don't know your value, that's when you always complain about price. And some people, they don't want to price their things so high because they think that when they price their things so high, people will not buy them. I do my mentorship. I charge people $5,000 for the mentorship that I give them. Why? Some people say it's too expensive. Someone said that you won't get. I get people that I sometimes I don't even want some. Reason is because the value will command its own returns. If the thing is of higher value, premium is attached to it. And that is why diamond is so expensive than water, even though water is more essential than diamond. Value command its own things. Okay, so that was just a digression. So with that in mind, we've been able to find expected value of perfect information. I've explained that. We are left to the very last one for today, and we are done. Let me take you to the slides and watch this here. The last thing that I want you to take note of is the expected opportunity loss. Expected opportunity loss. What is that? The expected opportunity loss is always equal to the expected value of perfect information. Keep that in mind. I want to repeat that. The expected opportunity loss equals the expected value of perfect information. In terms of, not in terms of the value, but in terms of the decision that you select. This is another way of calculating or deciding. Please, let me just remind you of some things we've learned so far. We've learned that you can use the maximin, the maximax approach to decide. Okay, that is optimistic. Then the maximin approach, maximin. That is a pessimistic. Then the minimax regret approach. The minimax regret. All of these, you use it to select a decision alternative. Okay. That is opportunistic approach. Then we've also learned the expected value approach, which is also called expected value without perfect information. We also use that to make a decision. Okay. Now we are about to, and then we digress and went through the expected value of perfect information, which is the with minus the without. Now we are left with the last one, which is expected value, expected opportunity loss. And I'm saying that the expected opportunity loss approach the conclusion from that, you're going to use it to make a decision. This is the only one we don't use to make a decision. The decision that you get from this expected opportunity loss is the conclusion you get is the same conclusion you get from the expected value approach. Let's see why. And remember, one is value, the other is loss. One is value, the other is loss. So they are kind of opposite. What is the formula for the expected opportunity loss? This is a formula. Please, every time I'm teaching this in the slide. Expected opportunity loss is given by the sum of the state of nature. Okay, so the probability of the state of nature, which is 0.6 for the first one and 0.4 for the second one. Each one multiplied by the regret. And this regret comes from the regret table. So remember, the expected opportunity loss approach is using the regret table. But the expected value approach is using the value payoff table. Take note. The EV uses the value or the payoff table to calculate. That's what it does. But then the EOL, the expected opportunity loss approach, uses the regret table to calculate. The value table is always given to you. Okay, this value table is always given to you from the question. So there's no problem. But the one that is not given to you is a regret table. That one you will have to calculate the regret table yourself. And that means that if your regret table is wrong, your expected opportunity loss will also be wrong. So your regret table must be correct. Let's remind ourselves, oh, by the way, look at the formula. And whenever I give you a formula, we write it down, okay? Look at the formula. So the formula says that the probability of the state of nature multiplied by each regret, the next probability of the state of nature multiplied by that next regret, and then you sum them. Let's go to the regret table. Look at your regret table. Okay. This, ladies and gentlemen, this one here is the regret table. What you have here is a regret table. In case you are here and you don't see the regret table, okay, this is a regret table. This one, the one I'm left with. What you see on the screen here, that is the regret table. Okay, so now that we have this regret table, what we need to do is we need to find the expected opportunity. So we need to find the expected opportunity loss for decision alternative 1. Then we find the expected opportunity loss for decision alternative 2. Remember, I told you that we use the EOL to also decide. Then we find the expected opportunity loss for decision alternative 3. How do you find that? You multiply the probability of the state of nature. The probability of the state of nature 1 was 0.6. And then for state of nature 2 was 0.4. So that means that if I'm going to do for D1, it is going to be 0.6 times the 50. It's going to be 0.6 times the 50, which is a regret, plus 0.4 times 0. That's the first one. The second one is going to be 0 times 0.6. Sorry, 0.6 times 0 plus 0.4 times 70. And the last one is going to be 0.6 times 70 plus 0.4 times 20. So what did you get for the first one? You can tell me the answer. You can tell me the answer for the first one. So these are losses, the expected opportunity loss. That's the first one. 30. You should get 30. For those of you who are with me, okay. So the first one, we're going to get a value of 30. So you get 30 here. The second one, if you work it well, you get a value of 28. Very good. Some of you are giving me right answers. And the last one, you get a value of, who can give me the last one quickly? Who's going to be the first person to give me the last one? Teresa, I knew you were doing something there. Okay, so that is 50. Okay, so that is 50. Excellent. So at this stage, you are going to make a decision. Which one is going to be the best decision under the expected opportunity loss? Remember, it's a loss, so you're going for the one with the lowest value, loss. Okay. And that is going to be what? It's going to be decision alternative 2, office building, because it has the lowest loss. Okay. So it is going to be D2 with the lowest loss of 28. And isn't it interesting that this same 28, like I told you, was equal to the expected value of perfect information? Do you remember? It's the same thing, expected value of perfect information. So I told you that anytime you calculate the expected value of perfect information, the answer you're going to get should always match the expected opportunity loss, the one that you selected. And the conclusion that came from the expected opportunity loss should be the same conclusion that came from the expected value approach. So we selected office building under the expected opportunity loss. What about the expected value approach? Let's go back there. You see value, okay, the value approach. This was it. Expected value approach. Do you remember the one we selected? Okay, we chose D2, which was 44. So they all chose office building. Both of them chose office. Expected opportunity loss and the expected value approach always lead to the same conclusion. And the expected opportunity loss value will always be equal to the evpi, the expected value of perfect information. That is the best conclusion. See, let me just tell you something. These things are not that difficult. They are only slightly confusing because there are quite a lot of approaches you are using. But when you take your time and you sit down and you look at each one of them, I guarantee you will do well. Now, before I come to your questions you may have, remember the following. Okay, let me just go back here and show you some important conclusions here. The first thing I want you to notice is that the expected value approach and the expected opportunity loss criteria will lead to the same decision, which I just said. Both approaches use probabilities. That's what you want to note. They use probabilities to make a decision. It's therefore important that every decision maker is as accurate as possible whenever you are finding the probability of the state of nature. There are some couple of past questions you should look at. This is a BTEA publishing company. It publishes management science textbooks. That is scheduled for revision. And this is a table that shows the conditions. So there are 4 books, different types, the same book, but then they are published. Some of them are published in paperback. Some of them are published focusing on only linear programming and network marketing and things. The same unfavorable conditions are all shown here. Question. Determine the best decision under the minimax and the maximin approach. Determine the best decision under the minimax regret approach. Suppose a BTEA has probabilities of the state of nature. S2 has been given, S3 has been given, but S1 was not given. How do you get S1? You get S1 by adding S3 and S2 and subtracting it from 1. Done. What is the best decision under the expected opportunity loss approach? We just did that for another one. And then finally, find the expected value of perfect information and compare your results with C. The result is the one I just went through with you. Both will use probabilities, okay? And then the expected opportunity loss approach will have the same answer as the evpi. And that is the most important thing. Okay, so let me go to Gifty. You may ask a question.
All right, Doc, you mentioned that the expected value perfect information is always equal in terms of decisions, not values. Would you say this time around it was just coincidental we got 28 to 28?
Now, I said expected value of perfect information. The value is always equal to that of the expected opportunity loss one, the score, the selected one. However, it is the expected opportunity loss one. Its decision, its conclusion will be the same conclusion as the expected value approach, not the expected value of perfect information. Okay. Don't be lost. Okay. So this is what I mean. The EV, just change it. So what I'm saying is that the EOL, the value of the EOL will always be equal to the EVPI value. When I say the value of the EOL, remember the EOL, there are multiple of them, but the one that gave you the best choice, the selected one, because there are quite a number of them, whichever one gave you the best. In our case, we have 42, we have 40, 50, we have 28 or something. So the one that gave you the lowest, it should always be equal to the EVPI. Then I also said that the EOL, okay, with that value, the decision you took using that will be the same decision you took using the expected value approach, which I also call the expected value without perfect information. Okay, a decision from there. Okay, so the two decisions will be equal. So I want to believe that that clarifies your point. If it doesn't, you can just let me know. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, these are some of the questions you can familiarize yourself with, and then you'll be able to get the best of report. Eric, you've also got some question you want to ask. Please go ahead. Eric, please go ahead. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you have some great questions. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time, hasn't it? I have enjoyed it, and I know you've enjoyed it. That's how many of you are smiling plenty.